Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be discussing the worsening situation with a possible hurricane hitting parts of the US through the Gulf of Mexico, as I've been talking about in the last video, yesterday's video, and that's because we are reaching the peak of hurricane season, and one particular area which I mentioned yesterday has now got a further increased chance of developing into a hurricane and affecting land. And unfortunately, something like this, which I'm showing right now, which is a model run, which I'll show at the end of the video, is what we could see. And this is very concerning. You could be seeing a high impact major hurricane at landfall. But there is a lot to talk about, a lot which we don't know. There is also a lot that we currently do know, and a lot that we can expect. But we just need to take a look at things. So let's get started. This is the current 5-day National Hurricane Center tropical weather outlook. As you can see here, yesterday we had a red area like this, a high chance of development around here. And that actually, as you can see, has now become Tropical Depression 9. That has winds of around 35 miles an hour sustained right now. That's going to be the focus of this video. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about how we have two other areas to watch. This one, in fact, has been upgraded. This is Invest 97L. You can see this has been upgraded to a medium chance of development within the next 5 days. And then we have Invest 98L, which, as you can see here, has still got a high chance of developing, though both of these are not too much of a concern because they should not be a threat to land in the end, though it will be important to monitor because you never really know what happens. So now getting into Tropical Depression 9. So you can see this is the National Hurricane Center website, and we have some key messages for Tropical Depression 9 as it formed just about half an hour ago. We've been kind of waiting for it to happen, and it has formed now. And you can see we have some key messages out from the National Hurricane Center. So let me just get my pen ready. So you can see tropical storm conditions are expected parts of the Cayman Islands tonight, Cuba on Friday and Friday night, with storm surge possible in some of these places. And then where the system is expected to produce heavy rains and flash flooding across parts of the Caribbean. And then you can see we need to turn to this section. So it's expected to approach the northern Gulf Coast to kind of Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi area at or near major hurricane intensity, which is category 3 or larger, on Sunday, although there is uncertainty as usual. But there is a risk of life-threatening storm surge, damaging winds, hurricane-force winds, and heavy rainfall Sunday and Monday from the Florida Panhandle, so around here, to the upper Texas coast. And the highest risk is along the coast of Louisiana. And so it is important that you monitor the progress of the system and ensure you have your hurricane plan in place, because this is quite a high impact scenario, and unfortunately confidence is increasing. If we just look at some of these graphics here to get an idea of what we're talking about, these are the wind speed probabilities, and see these are the chances of tropical storm force winds being reached. We have a more than 80% chance in these regions, and we are really expecting tropical storm force wind speeds in these areas. It's just that there's still quite a lot of uncertainty. We can check the hurricane one. And you can see that currently there is around 30 to 40% chance in the yellow area that we will see hurricane force wind. So from here to here, there is currently a 34% chance. But given that the storm is expected to be a hurricane, I'd say that we will see this increase over the next few days. Looking at the current track from the National Hurricane Center, you can see here we have it's expected to be a storm relatively soon. It's currently a tropical depression. It's expected to strengthen into a tropical storm, affect parts of the Cayman Islands, western Cuba. That's on Friday evening. And then the moment it leaves Cuba, it will be in the Gulf. And the Gulf has got very warm temperatures, which I'll look at in a bit. And it's expected to rapidly strengthen into a hurricane from there, with a peak of probably around 110 to 150 mile an hour winds as it makes landfall on this forecast. But let me just quickly say that this forecast is still a long time away. It's expected to make landfall on Monday morning, as you can see here, and today is Thursday, and so that's a long way away. And so we expect to see significant changes in the intensity forecast and also some changes in the track forecast as time goes on. But nevertheless, it's going to be a high impact scenario. So especially the Louisiana coast, make sure if you are kind of anywhere in this region, you're monitoring the forecast. Could this be, because this could be a major impact. And as you can see on this forecast, we even get it shown as a hurricane getting quite inland. So this is the current satellite loop for Tropical Depression 9. And you can see here we have thunderstorms into parts of Cuba, also Jamaica. There are the Cayman Islands there. And you can see kind of quite disorganized, and we don't have as many thunderstorms on this edge as we do. The center's roughly around here somewhere. And if I show you the high definition loop, you can see we have, let me just get this pen ready. Sorry about this. You can see we have kind of northerly winds kind of in this direction here. And then we have winds wrapping around like this. And we kind of have our mid-level winds coming in like this. So it's likely that the center is somewhere around here. And the convection, as you can see, the rest of the thunderstorms are kind of displaced to the north and northeast of that. We do have a little bit of dry air affecting kind of this region, as you can see. But this is roughly where the center is. Mid-level center is probably somewhere around here in a similar location. And you can see if we look at the water vapor loop, you can see we do have a little bit of dry air, those darker grey colours that I was talking about. Those are affecting thunderstorms kind of on the western edge of the storm. You do see the center somewhere around here, and we have a lot of thunderstorms kind of on the northern edge of that. And we do have healthy outflow like this, as you can see. And we have our upper level low here, but the outflow is kind of pushing into that in a way, and as it strengthens, it is kind of expected to weaken this upper level low in the coming days. So I wanted to look at why this storm could be so significant, and the main element of a tropical storm or a hurricane is the sea surface temperature, in my opinion. And as you can see, storms around in this region right now, but anything kind of in this 26 or 28 degrees Celsius region of a sea surface temperature is good enough for a tropical cyclone development. And as you can see in this region, we're currently seeing 29 to 30 degrees surface temps. But as this storm heads along its track, which is projected to be into the Gulf, you can see that we are into a region of very high sea surface temperatures, about 30 degrees up to 31 and 32 degrees in these regions off the coast of Louisiana. And also we've got a very high kind of ocean water content, which means that we have a deep layer of warm water, which means it shouldn't get upwelled by a strong storm. And this is all very favorable for tropical cyclone intensification. And this is why we could see a major hurricane in the Gulf Coast. Now looking at kind of the track, we can see here, these are the model track guidance from Tropical Tidbits. And you can see here the storm is currently just south of Jamaica. That's where the center is, around there. And you can see there is quite good agreement on where this is going to go. There was a lot of disagreement before and uncertainty because the center hadn't even formed yet. I'll talk about that a bit later on. But as you can see now, we know where the center is, and it's going to be a bit easier to model from here. And so we're likely to see the storm kind of track around western Cuba, the tip of western Cuba. Unfortunately, that's not a large land interaction. We would have liked to see it maybe go through somewhere like this, the Yucatan Peninsula, to really weaken it properly. But unfortunately, that doesn't look to be the case. It would just brush the western tip of Cuba and then head right into the Gulf with a fairly long track over this 30-degree plus water. And as you can see here, there are really not too many models anymore showing any sort of situation through Texas, as was previously expected. Most of the models have now kind of converged onto the Louisiana landfall being the most likely situation. And you can see for a forecast, which is quite a few days out, we do have relatively good uncertainty. And it's likely that somewhere along the Louisiana coast at this stage sees the landfall. In terms of intensity, in terms of the ECMWF model, I just showed you kind of all the models, but the ECMWF model and the plus intensity, you can see here kind of a similar thing. This has quite a lot of ensemble members, but you can see here the general consensus is for the storm to track through parts of Louisiana. And you can see basically all of the members, which is kind of like a smaller version of like the model and their run to get the whole thing. You can see kind of shows somewhere around Louisiana. We have a couple just kind of Texas area, but these are outliers, and then we have just one kind of on the Mississippi-Alabama border. That's also an outlier, and you can see that roughly we're kind of expected. You can see these orange colors, which shows we are approaching a stronger intensity near landfall, but overall we're still expecting a Louisiana landfall. And same thing if you look at the GFS, this has a few more outliers. As you can see, one round here, kind of Mexico, Texas, a few through Texas, a few a bit further east as well. But again, the consensus is tracking through western Cuba and then making a curve towards the north as a strong hurricane near the Louisiana coast with a pressure around or below 970 millibars. This is the intensity guidance, and as you can see here, lots and lots of agreement that we are at least getting a Category 1 hurricane. A few models kind of going into the Category 3 area. I think, given the environment, and I'll talk about this a bit in a little while, we could see something a little bit higher. For now, I think this is pushing it a bit too low, but we'll have to see what happens. But it's quite certain that we are likely to see a Category 1, possibly higher hurricane around the point of landfall, but anything in the range to Category 1, possibly even towards Category 4, is in the mix for now, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. And now I will get into the models a bit. So this is the GFS model, as you can see. Here is our kind of area just south of Jamaica with thunderstorms, kind of displaced to the north a little bit. But as you watch here, we spread this through. Pretty quick intensification is forecast because there aren't a lot of limiting factors at this stage, and we were kind of just waiting for the center to consolidate, to organize a little bit. And now that we've got that, we have pretty quick intensification. The GFS model even kind of showing a strong tropical storm hurricane by the time it reaches Cuba, which is kind of already going kind of beyond expectations. Or kind of, I don't really mean that, but already something that's, if it's showing it organizing this small amount of time, what could happen on the warm offs to the Gulf. But as you run through this, you can see that kind of within what I was just showing you, those intensity track forecasts and like the ensemble members, you can see you are expected to see this Louisiana landfall here. And this model run is showing a strong major hurricane landfall, as have the past ones. So we're going to talk kind of about moisture, any sort of limiting factors. The only really limiting factor right now, as I showed you on the water vapor imagery loop, is this kind of area of dry air just to the west of the circulation. That's kind of leading to a slight lack of thunderstorms on the western side of this, though dragging up lots and lots of moisture from parts of Central America, the tropics, into this, and kind of allowing it to kind of develop its own whole like envelope of moisture in a way, allowing it to keep a lot of thunderstorms, and especially over the warm, moist ocean, keep a lot of thunderstorms, regenerate them, organize quickly, that kind of thing. And as you run through here, you can see again that major landfall moisture, definitely not an issue at any stage really, apart from just right now. But as you can see here, lots and lots of moisture to keep those thunderstorms going. And if we go into the next element. Now, this is what I was talking about. We had some uncertainty on the track forecast for the last few days. And this is why you can see here the storm was originally kind of north of Bolivia around here. But we had a kind of whole area of what we call vorticity, which is kind of spin / energy, kind of rotating like this, kind of around this area over the last few days. You can see kind of spinning like that. And we kind of had this wave axis of kind of vorticity or spin, if you like. And it was really uncertain where along this kind of area we were going to see the consolidation of the center, because it could have been anywhere in here. And of course, that kind of has major implications, because if it's down here, we kind of have a lot more land interaction, etc., etc. And if it's further north, we kind of have the scenario that we're having now, lesser in land interaction, though the northern area was favored. And as you can see, that did develop into what we have today, that kind of vorticity consolidated itself into the circulation we have now. And if I run through this, you can see we have the system making landfall. And if I just briefly touch on some steering factors, notice this high here, and that's kind of driving it towards this area, though this really does try and push into that high. Talking about kind of wind shear and environment, you can see here, this is the wind speed at 200 millibars. You can see we have this upper level high just above the storm. This storm is already creating its own divergence, as you can see here. And we do have this upper level low around this area, this did bring a kind of a little bit of shear and dry air over the last kind of few days to the system. Maybe didn't allow it to organize as quickly as possible, but it's organized now, and really kind of the outflow aloft is really kind of helping to thin out this upper level low around here. The outflow from this storm kind of helping to thin out the upper level low, and as you watch through this loop, that upper level low kind of begins to dissipate, and what we see here is we have a very strong storm. Let me run through a bit more. We have a very strong storm producing with its own upper level high, and then its outflow spanning outwards like this. One thing we will have to watch is we do have a system on the other side of the of Mexico, which is in the East Pacific. I think it's called Nora. I might be wrong on that though. That could produce some sort of divergence outflow that could kind of impart some shear over our tropical storm at this stage, maybe even a hurricane soon. This could kind of put some shear of this system, maybe could limit it a little bit. This is one potential limiting factor, though firstly, the GFS has kind of trended away from this solution over the last 24 hours or so. The ECMWF hasn't quite that will be one thing to watch, but as you can see here, it develops kind of this upper level high, which is almost a shield to the system in a way, getting rid of any shear, and with that divergence aloft, kind of basically just, a shield, low wind shear, perfect kind of environment for a storm, keeping anything else away. Okay, now we're kind of going to be talking about steering factors, which I briefly touched on a while ago. But you can see this is where our storm is right now, this little kind of blue area which shows below average pressure. If I run to this, you can see it track north towards, it's just loading, towards Cuba. And you can see our main driving factor for this is we have this ridge extending this way, and that's just really driving our storm towards the Gulf Coast and into the Gulf of Mexico, because the storm's not going to go into the ridge. It can't do that. This is a kind of a blocking sort of thing, and that's going to drive this into the Gulf of Mexico. The one thing that we do need to watch is this trough kind of being driven along by the jet stream. This is forecast to move kind of through the northern plains into Canada. Could bring some severe weather there, in fact, but it could kind of erode this area of high pressure a little bit. Let me just get rid of this. This could erode this area of high pressure a little bit in this kind of area. So this high pressure could weaken. This could move back a bit. And while it still will be forced into this direction, we could in fact see a turn to the north. And we are expected to see a turn towards kind of curving round into this high pressure system. And there isn't too much uncertainty at this stage, but depending on how this kind of interaction between this trough and the high pressure behave, we could kind of see variations. That was very wonky. We could see kind of variations in the track forecast, depending on how these behave, could lead to maybe a landfall kind of further into Texas, maybe even one possibly further into kind of Florida Panhandle area, Mississippi, Alabama region. So there is still a lot of uncertainty regarding this, what this does. But right now, the most likely situation is for it to turn to the north, kind of just before it reaches Louisiana, and allow for a significant landfall there, like that. So now we kind of talked about a few things, and it's an overall a very favorable environment. We have kind of keeping any shear away. We've got very warm sea surface temperatures. We have low shear, like I just said, divergence aloft, and like kind of everything's in place for a very strong storm. And so we need to look at some of the potential scenarios that we're going to see here. And this is one model, the HWRF. This can be quite reliable at times. We will probably have to wait for a recon mission to kind of really get this accuracy up. And I expect that now that we know where the center is, the model runs should kind of agree a bit more now that we know where the storm is. But this is one potential scenario, which is quite a worrying one. You can see, sorry about that. We run through this here. You can see kind of approaching Cuba, like that, and then it really develops as it goes into the Gulf, rapidly intensifies into a very strong hurricane as it nears landfall, as you can see kind of on this model. And we will be looking at kind of winds around the 115, 120 mile an hour mark as it approaches landfall. That's one of the scenarios at this stage. We could see something high because the ceiling is quite high. We could see something lower depending on what happens, but I think there is a fairly high certainty at this stage, much higher than usual, that we will see a major hurricane at landfall. And one thing that I can show you here is what the hurricane might look like. By the way, this is just an indication, kind of almost not for fun, but just like it's not really any way for sure of certainty. You can see this is what the storm might look like on the simulated radar as it approaches landfall. Potentially, this is what I showed you at the start, with a very strong eye wall, a defined eye, and very strong winds. And unfortunately, this scenario is looking quite a lot like what happened with Hurricane Laura last year, which brought a very bad impact to parts of Louisiana. Lake Charles especially could be seeing a pretty severe strike again from another hurricane, which will be Hurricane Ida if it develops into a hurricane. But it's already tropical depression, and it's definitely need to watch out. So make sure that if you are in any of these regions, sorry about this, let me just move back. If you're in any of these regions along the Gulf Coast, so basically from anywhere inside this cone of uncertainty, make sure you're monitoring this forecast, because it is likely to be a highly dangerous, potentially major impact event as it nears landfall on the Louisiana coast. Thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.